Welcome back, everyone, to Everyday Therapy, a podcast with the goal of empowering you to become the best version of yourself. We hope to meet you wherever you may be on your journey to mental health and well-being. My name is Krista Overson. I'm a licensed therapist, and I'm joined by my most excellent and great co-host, Brett Cushing, also a licensed therapist. This is the official podcast of Nystrom & Associates, one of the largest behavioral health companies in the country. If you or someone you love is struggling with their mental health, Nystrom has over 50 clinics with dedicated helpers. Visit us at nystromcounseling.com. I want to orient you to this episode. We are on part 3 of 3. So make sure to go back and listen to the first 2 parts of this series. We are talking about sexual trauma, sexual abuse, and I want to just make sure you listen with care. We may have some details that are triggering. Of course, it's a topic that can be, difficult to discuss, but we actually have the privilege of having a guest today and who's been on our previous 2 episodes, Lindsay, who has been sharing with us many inspiring and very wise things about her journey of healing after basically surviving extensive sexual abuse and trauma. And one of the things that, Lindsay, you were mentioning as we were getting ready to press record on this is how long have you been waiting to share your story?
So the first time I was raped, I was 15, and I was 18 when I got pregnant with my daughter. So I've literally been waiting 20 years to share my story. My daughter's 21 now.
Wow.
And having a daughter from a relationship of rape, it was something at a young age I felt I needed to share and speak out of, because when you have a daughter from that, you don't want your daughter to endure the same thing. And I felt it was important to find a space, a platform to share my story, to empower other women not to feel the shame, and to also, if possible, to get out of the relationships in a safe manner. And then also to find help. The mental health aspect is important. Yep. It's extremely important.
Yes.
Yeah, and I bet at age 15, 18, you weren't thinking at that time, well, I'm looking forward to talking about this someday. And
sure.
It's a powerful statement, because even in the midst of that pain, you may not have realized there's something redemptive that can still come out of this for me and for other people. And so I think that's such a powerful statement. Waited 20 years to tell this story, even though 20 years ago you didn't realize it. And there are people listening who don't realize, because all they see right now is that pain. And it's a great word for them to look into the future and choose to believe this pain can be somehow redemptive in my life and to help other people. And we're so glad you're here to tell your story towards that end. We wanted to talk about important keys to healing, and we have all these alphabet soup of different things you've done: ADT, DBT, EMDR.
LMNOP.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to get into that, but I know you also had said the role of spasticity. Do you remember talking about that? And just really the role, and I think you started, which was really important for a lot of people who have gone through what you've gone through. It's just bringing some stability so that your body is not reacting in emotional dysregulation. Can you maybe start there?
I believe the way I tried to explain it was when I was not trying to deal with my mental health issues, the way that my body would hold on to my trauma, I was literally, the tension I was holding on to, my chronic illnesses were just so deeply embedded into me. I could barely walk.
Wow.
I had full body tremors. my migraines, everything were so out of control. I was stuttering. I could barely think. My cognitive health was just, horrible. My retention, I wouldn't remember what people were telling me.
Wow.
So for me, I was holding on to everything that had happened to me, and I couldn't release it. It was just everything trapped within my body.
Back to, thank you for sharing that. What was that word you used, Brett?
Spasticity?
Yeah, what does that mean?
That was actually her word. That's, she had shared that once.
Okay. That's new to me.
Yeah, and I thought it was really fascinating. I'm like, well, what is that? And kind of what you're talking about now is just the emotional and the physical.
Being trapped within like your body where you get all that tension, but then like with MS, you have that spasticity where your muscles can twitch and flail out of nowhere.
Wow.
And it's like that trauma had embedded itself in all my muscles.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned, I think, in one of our episodes in this series, Brett, The Body Keeps the Score, the book by Bessel van der Kolk, who has extensively researched trauma, the effects of trauma, and I think it's just incredible. I used to be skeptical about how physical symptoms could manifest after someone's experienced trauma. Right. I am no longer skeptical because I've seen so many examples of this where people will develop these chronic health issues when they have this unresolved trauma. And it's almost the body's way of, holding on to what's happened.
Yeah, and Lindsay, you've experienced sexual trauma, various kinds, various times. And tell us just kind of top three medical kind of diagnoses you have, because you're bringing up a really good point. This isn't just emotional, this is systemic. There's a physiological effect that trauma has that we have to pay attention to. So tell us about that you have.
My first diagnosis at 26 was Sjogren's syndrome. And that also came with like the fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue. So that was just kind of bundled together.
Yep.
And then at 29, it was MS.
Wow.
Yep.
Yep. Multiple sclerosis.
Yes.
Yep. And then from there, we've had like a whole slew of other ones, kidney and heart issues.
Yep.
Neuropathy.
Yep. Neuropathy. Migraines. Yep.
Bringing in the ears, loss of smell.
Yep. Mast cell activation syndrome, which is my immune system basically sees things as allergens, so I can have an anaphylactic response to water, which I've had 3 times this year, just drinking plain water.
What?
Yep.
I'm blown away by that. Yeah. Wow.
But I think it speaks powerfully too. Like, you have to realize that trauma has a physiological effect, and we have to address that. And you're here as just a shining testimony that my life can have pain, and still I can have a life worth living.
It can have a lot of purpose and have pain. Correct.
Let's notice that dialectical balance there. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Super powerful example here. And so you began working physiologically and emotionally with getting yourself regulated, your body, these physiological symptoms, these emotional symptoms regulated. And I think you started with ADT, which stands for
Adult Day Therapy.
Adult Day Therapy, yes.
Yeah. Which I believe it was it 4 hours a day, every day for 40 days?
It's an intensive
30 days, 40 days.
It's basically like if individual outpatient therapy, so just going to see a therapist once a week, sometimes you need more, right? You need 5 days a week, you need 3 days a week, whatever it might be. And so, it's kind of like an intensive treatment.
Yes. Yeah. And then Then you went to DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Oh, could have done a drum roll for that one. I do DBT. So dialectical behavioral therapy, we've talked about a lot about that starting in January.
Which again, yes, we did. We did a long series on that. And which again is another kind of step up in intensity from just weekly therapy, because there's a group component and there's a lot of skills work. So, and then you had mentioned EMDR,
which we both do.
Which Brett and I both do. EMDR is like the whole reason I became a therapist.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that sometime. But it's my absolute favorite. But that's where I always say kind of the nitty gritty meat and potatoes, like healing the specific trauma memories happens. And it's just, I mean, it gives me goosebumps just talking about it, because I know you had certain experiences with EMDR where it's like that you were able to come through some of these traumas, and the brain has changed forever with EMDR. So it stands for, just briefly, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. And I always tell clients the hardest part about EMDR is explaining that name, because it's a mouthful. But go back and listen to, you can search our episodes. We do a full episode on EMDR. It's several months back now, but if you want to learn more about that, be sure to do that. So you had, your team of therapists and, these programs, and we had highlighted too at the end of the last episode, the key though was your willingness. The key was your decision that you were going to continue to pursue healing, and that was the game changer, right?
And absolutely. And I think even if we take a step back, before I came to Nystrom, there was an extreme event in my life that happened.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
We lost 2 of our family members in a cabin explosion in the beginning of 2020.
Wow.
And it took me, kind of took everybody in my family to a very low point, but me to my lowest point, the grief that we felt. And so I raised my hand for help, and I went and stayed at the Mayo Clinic for a week at the mental health unit there. And from there, they set up some services here at Nystrom, the ADT. And I went and I met with Beth, and she set up services with DBT thereafter. And that's just where I began. But I think it's important to point out that, yes, grief is also a trauma, ambiguous grief. Grief, all of it is important to recognize, and it can take you to a very dark place, and to raise your hand for help, and to just take that step as well.
Yeah, I love that phrase, raise your hand for help, because again, it's you making a decision to raise your hand for help, and then that's where, the helpers can come in. And such a great point too about grief. I mean, especially something so shocking that, as the loss that you and your family experienced. And I don't know about you, but in my experience, having an event like that can bring up all the other stuff.
And that's exactly what happened. That was the ignition switch to everything for me. It was just, you lose your grandparents, but to lose a grandparent in that manner,
exactly. By itself, it's enough. But then to lose both in that manner, exactly. I had one burning question that I don't want to forget to ask, which is, prior to that event, prior to raising your hand for help in that instance, which I'm so glad you did, had you tried therapy before that? And what was your experience?
So I had tried one session when I lived in Texas.
Okay.
Never went back.
Okay.
Didn't feel that connection. So I didn't go back.
Yep.
I had tried, when I moved back here 10 years ago, I had tried with a therapist within the Alina system.
Okay.
Went, I think, probably a handful of times. Also really didn't feel the connection. And actually in the last session, what really turned me off was a comment. The therapist wanted me to come back the next session with 5 things I did not like about myself.
You did not like about yourself? That's interesting.
I'm speechless.
And when you're already in a depressed state, chronically ill, feeling disconnected from your child who's living in another state, feeling like you're just a huge burden to your family, you can't work. Well, why don't you say, what do you like about yourself versus what do you dislike? Because I could bring in 12 pages of what I dislike about myself at this point.
Right, and then to spend a week between appointments thinking about and reflecting on what you don't like about yourself, to me, I'm not trying to like trash this other therapist, but I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know, like the timing and just, I don't know if I want to give you that ammunition against yourself, right?
Well, and that just allows you to stew, right, between appointments.
Exactly.
And it's just like...
Right. I think this is I don't want to, feel free to keep speaking about this, but I just want to put in kind of a little comment about, I always tell clients, find your fit. If you go to a therapist, and even nowadays it can take a long time to get in somewhere and find something and whatever, but if it's not a fit and it doesn't click, keep looking, because you want to find a healer. So I think there's a difference. There's healers and there's therapists. Like there's people who are clinically trained and very intelligent and know their stuff, and then there's people who just have like a heart for the healing part, or and I'm not saying some therapists don't, but it's just different. Like you have to find that fit,
and you'll know the difference. You'll know when you find the person, because also you'll be able to speak freely.
Yes,
and you can be assertive for what your needs are.
Right,
and your therapist won't feel like you're walking on them.
They won't feel threatened by that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They'll be able to communicate openly with you as well, and you won't feel like you're being walked on either. It will be a give and take relationship, and you'll feel that.
Right.
And you won't feel awkward. You won't feel threatened or any of these awkward feelings or emotions when you walk into that office.
Right.
It will be calm and a safe space to share.
Yes.
And when you leave, you'll feel calm, healthy, like you've had a piece of yourself healed to walk out with.
And speaking of, part of yourself being healed, you had said, hey, I could have given 12 pages of things I don't like about myself. How has that changed as a result? How do you view yourself? Because I'm sure there are people listening again, and they could say, yeah, 12 pages, totally can relate to that. And they would love to know, how do you feel today? Like, is there hope for me to actually, because I can't imagine thinking anything different than these 12 pages of self-invalidation. So like, how do you view yourself, life, etc. now compared to that?
I absolutely love my life today. Love my life today. I will not date anytime soon. I can tell you that right now. I love being single. Love it. I love being that single, just like free floating, independent woman. I can tell you constantly guys are trying to talk to me, get my number, hey, it's like, hey, bye. Right. I don't have time for it. I'm dedicated to my health and healing right now.
Yes.
It's more important for me to heal myself, not to worry about what some guy wants to talk about, what he wants to do.
Yep.
It's important for me to deal with me right now. But I am so happy with where I'm at. I'm happy to finally be living independently, have my own space, be able to drive to and from my appointments, not have to answer to whom I'm living with or...
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And everyone in my family actually have that sense of comfort that I can do it.
Good.
And not feel like, is she okay? Is she not okay? And know that if I'm at a space in my health that if I need help, I'll just go and stay with them.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to just sit at home and like die.
Right.
I'll actually raise my hand and be like, can I come stay with you?
Yep.
So everybody actually understands that I can care for myself. I can do, and I will ask if needed.
Yep.
And I think that bears repeating. You've had so much trauma, significant trauma, in your life. You had so many ramifications. You got MS, you got Sjogren's, you got neuropathy, etc., etc. And I love my life.
Yeah.
And I really want people who are listening to hear that. That you can have the pain and still have a life worth living, where you can actually say, I love my life.
Right.
What a great word of hope for people.
Well, especially because I think there's a temptation to, I can see, maybe some people listening to this being like, oh, it's just that simple. And it's like, that's why we're stressing the work that this has taken, right? Like this is not you sitting back reading a book, like casually, whatever. Like you have been at this and you have given it your all. And so that's where the healing has come in, and now you're seeing the benefits of that. One other piece I wanted to go back to, I was so interested in the piece about dating. So have you gotten pressure? I loved what you said about, I love being single. I'm focusing on myself. Have you gotten pressure from friends or family? Because I know sometimes friends and family, well-meaning, will be like, oh, you got to get back out there. You got to do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, that pressure is real sometimes. Yeah. And I think, it's such a strong stance that you have.
No one's even asked if I have a boyfriend.
Good.
No one's even asked if I'm talking to them. They're just like, whatever.
Do you?
Yeah, they're just like...
I love it.
I think they're kind of used to me just being me and doing for myself, because I've always kind of been independent and just doing whatever.
Right.
That they don't even think of me being with anyone. They don't even think of asking.
Yep, good.
So it works perfectly for me.
Good.
Yeah, so I don't get that pressure.
I'm really glad to hear that, because I've worked with some clients, and even, within my own family, some relatives, where it's just like, there's for some reason this pressure, like you shouldn't be single or something.
Yeah, no, not my family. I think my family would rather me probably not be with anyone. You know what I mean? Sure. It's less hassle for everybody.
Right.
After everything I've been through.
Right, exactly.
So let's close with two things then, because I think people would be curious. How do you feel towards your abusers? And then just any kind of closing words you want to say to people who are listening. So let's start with that first one. How do you feel about your abusers today?
I would have to say I am so indifferent towards them. It's almost like they don't even exist. Like if I were to see them on the street, I honestly don't even know if I'd recognize them. Honestly.
That's incredible.
And that's even to say my daughter's father.
Sure.
I haven't seen him in 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know if I'd recognize any of them, because I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I've done so much work to move forward that it's like, I'm not going to worry about them, their behaviors, what they want, what they're doing to impede now on what I'm trying to accomplish.
Right.
So I just don't care.
I love it.
Just blatantly.
So do you, for clarity, do you think you've forgiven them then? Or what do you think?
I honestly don't know if it's forgiveness that's there. Yeah. I don't know if there's even really a label for that feeling. Because what they've all done is kind of atrocious in my mind.
Right.
So I don't know if forgiveness is anything I could ever give them.
Sure. Yep.
However, I just don't care about them. I don't care enough to care. It's just like,
which to me is so powerful.
Yes.
I'm just like in awe right now, because it shows that you've neutralized the trauma memories enough, and the right? When you think about those individuals, it's like you have a neutral response.
Yep.
It's not like you're avoiding thinking about it, like I can't go there.
Yep.
And you're also not, raging. I mean, anger, of course, any response you have is completely valid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing from you is that is a neutral stance.
Right.
Which is freedom.
Yep. Exactly.
Right?
And that's exactly what it is. It's freedom from the thoughts.
Yes.
The trauma bound to the thoughts.
Right.
Anything associated to what happened.
Yes.
I'm just free of it. I no longer attach any emotion to it anymore.
Yep.
And I know you've talked in the past where you even welcomed the opportunity to see them in public.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I think that's highly significant.
Because I think they would be more affected by it than I ever would. I think they would be kind of
Scared.
trembling, like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Oh
what
my
is she
gosh.
going to do? Oh my God,
Yeah.
what's going to happen here?
Exactly.
And for me, it'd just be like, what?
What?
Right.
Yeah.
You have no power over me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like, who are you?
Unaffected.
Yeah, like,
Yep.
what's your name? You
Yeah.
know, like to me, it'd just be like, I don't know you.
And genuinely, not like you're playing a game.
No.
Yeah,
to
like,
show them, but
It would
genuinely,
be like,
that's where you
I
are.
don't recognize you. Like,
Yes.
who are you?
Yeah.
And like they'd be trembling or, like their emotions would be like raging probably. And it'd be like,
Well, I think that also speaks to the extent of the healing you've experienced from all of the hard work you've done. And it really speaks to, again, the hope and how we can empower ourselves to be having the life we really want and
Right.
become our best version of ourselves. In closing, what would you like to say to people who are listening?
I would like everyone to know for so many years, 20 years, I felt hopeless. Because whenever I tried to express what I went through, shame was attached to me for the circumstances. For 4 years, I dedicated myself to the hard work of healing myself. I want everyone to know if they dedicate themselves to the same thing, they can feel the freedom I feel today. But they have to want it. They have to dedicate themselves. They have to be willing to work with a therapist side by side with trust to get to where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to want it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, if you're willing to do it, it's the most amazing feeling after being bound for so long.
Lindsay, on behalf of Krista and myself and Nystrom, as well as all who are listening, thank you so much for taking all this time to share your story and offer hope, tangible, real hope, that there can be pain and a life worth living, where you can honestly say, I love my life. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you to both of you. And I want to thank Nystrom for 4 years of dedication, trust, and love. Truly.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay. I just want to add one more piece because we've ended each episode with a resource for you. If you find yourself in a domestic violence situation, sexual violence, even sex trafficking, I want to give you a hotline, 1-866-223-1111. DayOneServices.org is there for you to call and chat and get help. And with that, we're going to close this amazing episode. I hope everyone takes good care.
Thank you as always for listening, and please be sure to leave us a review. While this podcast can't be a replacement for therapy, we hope you enjoyed our discussion today and join us again next time. Nystrom & Associates is always available to those who are struggling. If you find yourself in need of support and help, please check us out at nystromcounseling.com.